Hey guys, girls, it's Philip McKernan. I'm sitting here in Houston Airport on the way back from Florida, having done a one-day event for a group of people around our gifts in this world and how to essentially look at ways and consider ways that we hadn't thought about to impact the world and leave this world in a better way than we found it. So that was a lot of fun, and it's weird for me to be sitting in an airport heading to a different country to where I live in order to be reunited with my family. And we've had so many people asking us, what the heck is going on? I think you're down in Mexico. You've been down there for quite some time. How's the holiday going? Have you been deported? Are you running for the police, etc.? But none of those things are necessarily true. But we are in a different country, and we are there for about 6 weeks. And we're there during a period of time when, quite frankly, the weather in Ireland, where we reside, is pretty crappy. And I suppose I just want to give you a quick insight into how this all came about and the thinking behind it, or the lack of thinking behind it. Ireland is just extraordinary. It's so beautiful. If you've been on a trip to Ireland with me at a retreat, or you've been there separately, you'll know what I'm talking about. But let's be frank about it. On the west coast of Ireland in January, February, it is absolutely brutal and freezing and cold. And not that I despise that or hate that, it's just not necessarily for me. And given an opportunity to do something different and experience that with our family, well, why the heck wouldn't we? So how it all came about was often, we come up with these ideas, we share them too prematurely. They're often not received very well by our direct family, by people around us, and then we basically put all these narratives and stories in our heads about why it can't happen. And then before you know it, a year has passed, 2 years have passed, 3 years have passed, and we haven't done anything about it. And that's okay. I'm not here to judge that, either in myself or anybody else for that matter. But what happened last year was I simply declared to myself that I didn't want to be in Ireland in January. And that thought process and that little mini declaration isn't enough in its own right, because it's simply telling the world what it is you don't want, or at least telling myself. And then it shifted very quickly into, I want to be somewhere else. And it wasn't even about warmth. To me, it's about light. I mean, look at this blue skies behind me. And also creating a different environment so we can be stretched, whether we're consciously stretched or subconsciously stretched, doesn't really matter. So the thought very quickly turned into, from I don't want something to this is what I want. Not knowing how I was going to go about it, and then sharing that with the people around me. And when you sit with something long enough, what happens is it kind of formulates inside you, and you speak with it, not with more authority, but with more just conviction and more confidence and fluidity, and therefore you communicate in a way that's not threatening to the people around you. I hope this is making sense, because there's, if you follow my stuff on social media, I just posted something with a T-shirt saying "sit with it," which ironically the host who had me down to speak actually got made because he'd been at a retreat that I run, and I often say to people, sit with it. And I think we're so quick to shut things down within ourselves without sitting with something long enough, and we're too quick to share and declare to other people without sitting with it in advance, and therefore they're reacting to something we're not confident about. We haven't integrated into our thinking and into our bodies and into our minds and into our souls. So when I share this with Pauline, my wife, she didn't shut it down. She wasn't desperately enthusiastic, but she was kind of really open to it. And then, of course, once that starts to happen, momentum gathers, and you start coming up with ideas and timelines and possibilities. And then, without boring you with details, I bump into a lady who owns a private school in the city that we're in Mexico. She invited me to speak in that city last year, and then I went to see the school, and then she said, why don't the kids come and hang out here for a while? And then before you know it, here we are, and we're in the midst of it. We're not after the fact. So I go back to Mexico for another couple of weeks, and it's turned out to be just monumentally important and fun, and just really, really cool. And we're living in this big city, which is very different to where we live, and we're just meeting great people, we're having great conversations, we're working, it's not a holiday, but we're taking space here and there. So I suppose what is the learning opportunity in this? Well, I mean, the story is the learning, the story is the opportunity, the story is the invitation. Sorry about the announcements and everything else. But if there's something that you're considering, don't, starting with an understanding of what you don't want is one thing. Help shift that into what it is you do want. Don't be too fast to declare that to the world, because the world often shuts you down. And be careful about the stories and the narratives that you tell yourself to shut it down, and remain open without being too attached to an outcome, which is what I often say. And then just see what happens. And what you'll find is things will show up and opportunities will show up. And like everything in life, when you're drawn to do something that feels intuitive and feels authentic, what you'll find is it's not as hard as you think. And when you're in it and looking back, or after the fact looking back, saying, God, that wasn't as hard. In fact, a lot of that was just psychological, like getting out of our own way and past the thinking that we have and the limited narratives that we have, etc. So that's my little story. That's an update in how this all came about and what we're doing. I wish you well wherever in the world you are, and take care and talk soon. Bye.